Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have a look at the latest from the live radar. So we do have snow showers continuing to move westwards over the course of this evening. We'll have a look at the latest from the weather warnings. So we have got quite a widespread ice warning issued for tonight for the remnants of these wintry showers, potentially leading to some problems with ice overnight tonight. Then we'll have a look at the latest UKV run through the next 5 days, as it does look a little bit less exciting as we progress through this working week into the weekend. Things are going to slowly turn slightly milder, but still will be relatively cold. The next couple of days, pretty bitterly cold indeed still. Daytime temperatures touching 1 or 2 degrees, maybe 5 or 6 come Friday and Saturday. But most nights over the next 5 days, we are expecting a frost, potentially even quite widespread, at least initially. However, as we have seen over the past week or two, we've always been looking at the potential for a proper, prolonged, and more widespread cold and wintry spell. And as I said over the past week or so, this easterly wind we're seeing at the moment is potentially just the starter for the main course that is looking likely to arrive in around 6 or 7 days' time. Now we'll have a look at the latest from the longer range runs of the GFS, GM, Eastern and the ensembles to see what they are showing over the course of the next couple of weeks. Now we are seeing some discrepancies between the models, not in terms of the overall pattern, in terms of the Greenland High or anything like that, but is more to do with potential low pressure systems developing further southwards in around 7 to 10 days' time, which could cause some real complications. Not only could it allow milder air to push in, but if that milder air just stays offshore, then it could produce extremely heavy snow. And that's actually what we're seeing from the GFS today. The GM pushes that milder air slightly further inland, so cuts off the cold spell for southern England, whereas the Eastern WF doesn't develop those low pressure systems anywhere near as much, keeps us all widely very cold, still with plenty of snow showers, but nothing insane in terms of frontal snowfall. So I've looked at all of those in the second half of the video. Very intriguing this evening, looking at all the very cold model runs. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure you like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well. The link's in the description. Now, to start on the live radar, you can see we've got snow showers across parts of Wales and southwest England at the moment. Pretty much all of this precipitation is falling as snow. No marginality with this, as we have got very cold air aloft, and at the surface, temperatures are now falling widely towards freezing. Now, the radar has been a little bit deceiving today because we have seen a lot of precipitation, but it's been very light, and because of how dry the air is, sometimes some of the precipitation doesn't even reach the ground. That is sometimes something we can see with cold, dry air with a bit of light snow. We see sublimation, where the snowflake doesn't reach the surface because it does evaporate before it reaches there, because the air is so dry. It has been overcome in many areas by heavier precipitation, and of course it has widely flurried, but really we've only seen any notable snowfall across parts of southeast England. Some of these heavier pulses, especially as it is now dark, the ground is trending towards freezing, could develop a slight covering in places, but it is more due just to seeing some flurries at the sky foremost, and that is what we had expected leading into this. And yeah, those snow showers will continue to progress westwards, weaken as they lose the moisture from the south and the east, eventually clearing out into the Irish Sea, potentially even impacting parts of Southern Ireland tonight. Further northwards, got a few showers across parts of Scotland. Not quite as cold upper air temperatures here, so actually a little bit more marginal. That is a pretty ridiculous thing to say, that we're seeing a bit of marginal winteriness across Scotland, but guaranteed winteriness across southern England, just because we've got this very cold pool of air. Now, if we forget about the precipitation, it is frigid outside. It's absolutely freezing. Temperatures widely down towards freezing as of around 7:30, and will plummet further tonight. You can see where the wind direction is coming from, straight from the east. You can see parts of Belgium, Netherlands and Germany at the moment are widely down towards -5 or -10. We're not going to get quite that cold, but maybe -3 or -4 is possible. I do also just want to show you for a bit of fun, have a look at the past 24-hour snowfall. Again, this is what has fallen out of the sky, and it shows you where we have seen falling snow across a large portion of southern and eastern England. You can see with it's in the heaviest stuff here across parts of Kent. Seen some pictures from Sevenoaks there. You can see slightly darker blues indicating slightly higher precipitation, and it's these areas where we've seen a couple of centimetres of snow accumulate, but for most it has been just flurries, maybe a light covering at times, but really nothing to write home about at all at this stage. Another thing to have a look at is the dew points. Again, don't really look at the dew points, but look at the dew points at the moment. It is absolutely freezing. Dew points down towards -5 or lower, and that is just symbolic of the very dry air we have at the moment. Now, the latest weather warnings, you can see we've got a widespread ice warning issued for much of southern England and southern Wales. It expires at 3 AM, so we won't go through it in too much detail, as it hasn't really changed all too much. As it is very similar to the ice warning we saw issued yesterday for the morning. Again, a couple of centimetres of snow is possible, but really it is mainly for ice risk, as we do see any moisture from those showers through today freeze overnight, and again, could be ice issues as we head through the morning. But for most, it is fairly dry, so I don't expect too much in terms of widespread ice at this stage. Now, for the next few days, if you look at the precipitation, you'll be able to see that it turns fairly dry. As we head through Tuesday, very little shower activity around at all, maybe just clipping the far southwest, a bit of winteriness. But for most, it's dry, maybe a few rain showers further northwards as slightly milder air does move back in. Still cold at the surface, but the upper air temperatures do increase, which means this precipitation is likely to fall as more of a mix, or even as rain. But for most, it stays bone dry. A few showers again as we head through Wednesday afternoon into Thursday, still dry, but perhaps building in terms of cloud. But as we head into the weekend, look what happens. The wind direction starts to shift. Now, it slowly edges into a northerly, and yes, it does go northerly by around Friday, Saturday, but we're not expecting any majorly cold air to arrive until Sunday, Monday time at the earliest. Maybe even for the south, perhaps even Tuesday, by the time the really cold, snow-conductive air does arrive. But you can see as we progress through Thursday, the wind direction changes to the north as that northerly flow starts coming in, and you can see a bit of a weather front. That is the dividing line between the mild air and the colder air, but it's nothing bitterly cold yet, and that is why it's still rain there. It does progress through, and you start to see showers moving in. Look at the upper air temperatures. You can see it is turning colder, but it's not quite the bitterly cold air that will be arriving for most, if not all, come Sunday, Monday time. If you look at the upper air temperatures at the moment, you can see it is frigid across the south, and that's why there is no issue with marginal snow across England and Wales, but perhaps there is a little bit across Scotland. Absolutely freezing, down towards -10 to -12 degrees at 850 HPA. So if you haven't seen any winteriness today, but you are in this pool of very cold air, it does feel pretty bitter out there indeed. Yes, surface temperatures may still be around 1 or 2 degree mark, but the actual feel-like temperature, I've had a look at the Met Office app for where I am across North London, it feel like a -5 this evening, feeling absolutely freezing out there, and that easterly wind is relatively strong, but nothing crazy adds to that as well. And yeah, it does feel like a proper winter's day out there today. Yes, as I said, a bit of snow around, but perhaps it is just the starter for the main event as we go into next week. Now, if you look at the max temperatures, you can see through this afternoon, temperatures peaked around the 1 to 3 degree mark at best, really feeling colder than that. Overnight temperatures will move away well below freezing, perhaps -1 to -5 degrees is possible fairly widely. And into tomorrow, temperatures not going to get much above freezing again, maybe 1 to 4 degrees at best. So tomorrow it is still going to be frigid, still going to be freezing cold, but we're not looking at any widespread risk of winteriness at all. Through Tuesday evening, again, a frost will develop quite widely, but perhaps across the northeast coast starts to reduce as we start to see more cloud and slightly milder air drift in. And then as we head into Wednesday, temperatures start to nudge up, maybe more around the 3 to 6 degree mark. So slowly edging up as that slightly milder air moves in. And into Thursday, again, could be a frost across southern areas where we see clearer skies and still hang on to a bit of cold air. But by Thursday afternoon, again, rising more towards 4 to 7 degrees. As I said, milder air slowly moving in, but really not making too much of a dent, still keeping us at average to below average surface temperatures. Into Friday, a frost across northern and western areas. Friday afternoon again, 4 to 6 degrees, so not really nudging much higher at all. Into Saturday again, risk of a frost in some areas where we see clearer skies, and Saturday afternoon again, maybe 3 to 7 degrees, but starting to cool down, and we would expect it to continue to trend back down towards the low single digits, if not getting much above freezing by Monday, Tuesday, as the very cold air starts to drift in. As I said though at the start of the video, there is some uncertainty exactly how much cold air will move in because of these low pressure systems that could develop to our south. So if you're in southern England, if you are looking at the weather apps at the moment, they are going to be fluctuating massively from going to showing ice days and widespread snow to maybe 8 degrees if we do see milder air move in. So don't take your weather apps too literally, especially if you are further southwards, as they are going to be flip-flopping majorly as we do try to see the model resolve what's going to be happening next week. Now I do show you the latest GFS, which is incredibly snowy today, as it gets that dividing line between the cold air and the mild air bang across southern England. Now you can see at the moment easterly winds pushing in, the high pressure starts to build up towards Greenland, and we do see a bit of a northeasterly start to develop. But it is actually moving milder air around the high initially before the high builds in towards Greenland by Friday, Saturday, and then you can start to see the wind veering northerly, but the proper cold air is in these blues that are back in Scandinavia and to the east of Greenland. That really doesn't arrive properly until Sunday in towards Monday, and that's when the really cold air starts to move in. See, the GFS by Monday, Tuesday has us all in very cold polar air. But watch this low pressure system down to our southwest. This is going to be causing some big headaches in the next couple of days, because it is going to be the deciding factor between very cold, dry with showers, and potentially longer spells of snow with disturbances developing, perhaps very cold and very snowy if this low pressure is in the right position, or potentially even very cold in the north, mild in the south, with heavy snow perhaps across the Midlands or northern England. Those are the sort of 3 scenarios we're looking at this stage. Now, as this low pressure tries to move in, it slides along the very cold air, and you just watch the centre of the low. It just slides through the English Channel. Further northwards, it brings this big wedge of milder air in. Slides further southwards, we stay very cold. Now, as I said, the GEM and the ECMWF are kind of either side. The ECMWF keeps the colder air in for all, doesn't develop that low at all. The GEM pushes that milder air in further northwards, meaning the snow-rain line is across the Midlands, North England, or even further northwards than that, and southern areas will go from 1 degree to 10 degrees in the space of 6 to 12 hours. But here, the cold air hangs on, and that low rattles through and dumps, as we'll see in a minute, 20 to 30 centimetres of snow for some, for eventually clearing. Again, it is pretty fancy, as it would have to be exactly in that position to see that. But it, again, is a bit of fun seeing that from the GFS today. Beyond that, as we head into Thursday, Friday, the flow does turn a bit more slack as that low progresses through. And the reason why that low is allowed to move through is because the higher pressure is weaker. So essentially means the showers won't be as much, but then we see a higher risk of frontal snow. So, toying between different ideas here. Beyond that, though, we stay in the cold air all the way into the weekend, for eventually it slowly gets nudged away as we do see that block break down and westerly flow starts to push back in. So by Sunday, we're still in cold air, still most likely would wake up to pretty freezing conditions, but by Sunday evening in towards Monday, all will be in milder air again from this latest GFS, and we go into a westerly pattern. Now, interestingly, the mild air doesn't push in until about 300 to 306 hours here, so it is well into the future. Still a good 7 days of very cold conditions between the start of the main event and this moving in, so there is still a very high chance that it doesn't play out like this at all. But very interesting indeed seeing that from the latest GFS today, giving us very cold conditions, but potentially starting to introduce a few little caveats that could turn us milder, but equally could develop significant snowfall. And I do mean significant snowfall. If we do have a look at the latest precipitation charts, again, don't take these too literally, But as we progress through Sunday, snow showers start to arrive for northern areas, still a bit milder in the south, but winteriness arrives for all as we head into Monday. Initially, it's snow showers for all with a northerly wind, perhaps some disturbances in the flow, meaning more widespread winteriness through Monday and Tuesday. But as we progress into Tuesday evening to Wednesday, you see the milder air and a weather front arrives from the south. This bumps into that very cold air and gives widespread heavy snow across much of England and Wales, and as we'll see in a minute, dumps 20 to 30 centimetres before eventually clearing out to the southeast and turning us back very cold again, but the flow turning a bit more slack, meaning less showers. The snow depth here, as you see, initially snowed all the way down to the south coast before milder air does move in, so it would prohibit it there. But as it does progress, we see 20 to 30 centimetres, even as much as 40 centimetres from South Wales all the way through towards Essex and East Anglia, with bullseye areas across South Wales and perhaps to the north of London there. Looks like Hertfordshire, Bedfordshire, Buckinghamshire sorts of area. 36 centimetres, I think I see there. That is absolutely ridiculous. Would be historic if that came off. But again, it is just for fun. But it just shows you what could happen in this sort of pattern if low pressure and the cold air lines up exactly. Again, will depend on intensities, all this sort of thing. But the risk of widespread snowfall is definitely there as we head into next week if this pattern comes off. Now the GM is a little bit more progressive with this pattern. Again, you see the high pressure topples, milder air moves in for a time, then the northerly flow gets unleashed and it stays cold all the way till Monday, Tuesday. But then we see that low pressure move in. But look at the milder sector, it's much further northwards, which will mean it will be rain and milder for southern areas, but much colder further northwards. The low moves through and then we all wrap back into colder air, but southern areas perhaps not quite as cold with this pattern. And it's all because the block is slightly further westwards and it doesn't hold off the Atlantic into the longer term, and it allows low pressure to push back in. Has been a trend of the GM over the past week, as we've said, has tried to trend towards west-based NAO, and that is what we would typically see with this sort of setup, more of a west-based NAO, and that's what we can see here. So perhaps it's the GM having a little bit of a bias here towards sort of a west-based NAO with that. So again, we'll just have to take that into account. But regardless, similar to the GFS, but just produce that milder air about 100, 200 miles further northwards, which means many areas will go milder and it pushes that snow further northwards. Now, if you look at the east in the EF, that is on the opposite end. We see the high pressure move up towards Greenland, then we see the northerly wind move in. If we put the upper air temperatures, cold air starts to arrive by Sunday afternoon. It does take a little bit of time to push in completely. Still by Tuesday, we're still a little bit marginal further southwards, as we do see a little bit of a delay on the very cold air pushing in. But by Tuesday into Wednesday, all are in very cold air, and look to our south. No signs of that low pressure system. It is all the way down towards the Azores, if not getting towards Portugal, as the high pressure in the Atlantic is so much stronger and the jet stream is non-existent, or is non-existent in its westerly sort of frame. So east of OF would be drier, wouldn't have anywhere near as much frontal snow, if any frontal snow at all, but it would be widely a lot colder, and we'd be guaranteed cold for all, with the risk of snow showers and disturbances, of course. So we've got this pretty strong northerly flow, and you can see we have got generally pretty low heights as well. If we do zoom in the United Kingdom look, again, if we look at the precipitation here, this is by 192 hours, not doesn't get out to the full extent yet, but all of this would be snow, as of course we're not expecting any rainfall in the near future. All of this likely would fall as snow, and you can see quite a lot of it comes in the last few frames here as those northerly winds start to push in. So yeah, turning very cold, wintry still, but not quite as significant as the GFS would be. Now, if you do have a look at the ensembles, now the GFS definitely is liking that pattern of high pressure, milder trying to push in from the south, and you can see that from the scatter on the ensembles. Now, a few days ago, the scatter on the ensembles that we were seeing on the GFS, we would have said, is casting a bit of doubt in the strength of the Greenland high. This has got nothing to do with whether a Greenland high will develop or not and what capacity. It's to do with those low pressure systems further southwards. I guess downstream you could say it has got an impact from how strong the Greenland high is. But really, these upper air temperatures are fluctuating because it's all about where is that milder air going? Is it going to skirt well to our south like the eastern UF? Is it going to push in temporarily like the operational run does, where we've got a brief spike, or whether it does properly push in like the GEM does? Again, big spread here, and it's impossible to say. Some of these runs are mild initially, then very cold. Others are very cold, temporarily mild like the operational run, then cold again. Others will go very cold and stay very cold. So it'll be very interesting to see the trends over the coming days. And you can see precipitation is really ramped up as well in the past couple of days. There's lower pressure and generally higher precipitation is looking very possible. Now, unfortunately, we don't have the latest Eastern UF 12 o'clock run out yet, so we'll have to look at the midnight run, and you'll be able to see on the latest midnight run that it is very cold indeed. Nowhere near as many milder runs next week, or at least early next week. Yes, some small bumps here, which could suggest lower pressure trying to run in, but really not getting much above the -5 line at all, which would mean that the Eastern UF is definitely more on board with the stronger block and with much colder air dominating. So that would produce a more widespread, sort of more long-term colder spell, but perhaps wouldn't have as much widespread snow, especially for southern areas and inland, where, of course, being further from the coast reduces moisture from showers, meaning, of course, there's going to be less intensity and less frequency of showers. And that is a problem we can see sometimes with the northerly wind. If you want snow, is that it can get confined really to coastal areas, as especially coming from the north. If you're on sort of the Midlands, for example, there's very long very long track across land to get from the sea to get that moisture for any showers. So it is going to be very interesting how it does play out over the coming days. We've sort of kind of pivoted from what will the overall pattern be. That's kind of been decided now to what's going to be happening day to day in terms of severity of cold, widespread nature of the cold, and the risk of snow. As I said, during this video, it's going to chop and change massively over the coming days. So again, wouldn't take any chart too literally over the next couple of days. But by Thursday, Friday, Saturday time, we should have a much better idea on what is going to be happening. Not just only how cold it's going to be, but of course on those risks of snow as well. This sort of colder spell has been very well modelled for quite a long time. Or maybe not say well modelled, because it has had lots of hiccups, little bits and up and down, wobbling, but it has been shown within the models for the past week to 2 weeks. So it's felt like we've been talking about this for quite a while, but we are now pretty much counting down the days to the proper cold, widespread conditions to move in. Probably as soon as Sunday or Monday, so 6-7 days time. And that is when the real cold air arrives and the widespread risk of snow does increase substantially. So it's going to be fascinating watching the models over the next few days. As I said, to remind you, don't take any run too literally, as it's going to be chopping and changing a lot. But I'll keep you updated on what all the current trends are over the next few days, and hopefully we'll be able to see a bit of consensus as we progress towards the end of the week in terms of the widespread nature of the cold, and of course on the snow risks as well. So anyway, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.